and eventually they started to publicize their message of gender equality, which led to the birth of 1 Million Signatures campaign. Now, in the words of Parveen Ardalan, one of the founders of the 1 Million Signatures campaign, I'd like to talk about the campaign, which is a 3-year-old project that has expanded Iranian women's rights movement across the globe. The campaign is not a group, it's not a party or a fraction or an organization. The 1 Million Signature campaign to change discriminatory laws, as its name suggests, is a movement seeking a space to express demands for specific legal rights and to bring changes to the laws through the collection of signatures and through face-to-face interaction. The initial signers were 54 individuals with different political, ideological, and intellectual leanings, and not a party or a fraction. They are only the initiators and the founders of this movement, and not its owners or guardians. Perhaps foreseeing the horizontal expansion of this effort in a patriarchal society where all facets of society are controlled was not simple. Neither the women's rights activists nor the state security forces expected it to continue, but it did, and carried on in its path for more than 3 years now. Spreading the quest for equality in all corners of the world in different forms, as well as its variation in an extensive network of different leanings and ideologies, is the secret to the longevity of this action. A movement that started with 54 people has now expanded to a wide network of individuals and groups in Tehran, the provinces, and other countries which have a real and obvious presence and continue their active existence. At least one of the principal successes of this new movement is that the discussion of the subject of violation of women's human rights by cultural practices and within the parameters of the law is no longer taboo. And in recent months, it was able to make the Iranian presidential candidates aware of women's demand for their equal rights and the importance of the role and the opinion of the women. The campaign has had an immediate impact on the society by entering people's homes and hearts, and by making women's rights discussion part of the public discourse, which expands beyond the concerned activists, scholars, or the feminists. This road has been rough, yet rewarding. Although the movement collectively and some of its members individually have received international recognition in form of several different awards, most recently the Simone de Beauvoir Women's Freedom Award, Feminist Majority Foundation 2009 Global Women's Rights Award, and the 2009 Women of the Year Award from Glamour magazine. This movement has paid a heavy price in form of arrests, detentions, and punishment for making our message public and widespread. How would civil movements such as the campaign make a difference? The essence of the gender discrimination is unequal treatment on the basis of gender. The treatment must not simply be different, but also unequal and therefore unfair. Almost all amendments and new civil laws are approved not because our representatives in Congress review the laws on the books and find the deficiencies and the shortcomings in them, but rather because the public outcry is formulated into petitions and lobbied on the floor of the Congress. Sadly, in many cases, the laws that are currently protecting women's rights here in the US were also not the result of the fair and impartial legal system review of the laws. Rather, an event that women had been complaining about for a long time finally happened to a man. Or an opportunistic politician came up with a clever idea to use women's issues to deliver his own agenda to the public. This year, we witnessed several examples of this concept in Iran's political scene. As a result of the social demand in recent years for more freedom for women and gender equality, before the election, for the first time, candidates specifically addressed and publicized their plans for women. Their wives accompanied them in the presidential campaigns and during interviews, and had a new presence in the media. In order to win popularity, Ahmadinejad Convention was ratified, which granted women the right to vote. But many other laws had to pass in order to protect the basic human rights of women. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 provides strong protection against gender discrimination in employment. Sexual harassment is a type of gender discrimination. Workplace harassment is another form of unlawful discrimination. But how these laws were introduced and passed through the Congress is the ugly truth that is hidden. In February 1964, Representative Howard W. Smith, a powerful Democrat from Virginia, offered an amendment to include sex, which gender is a more accurate label, as a protected class. Many suspected that he had alternative motives because he was a known prejudice towards race. And in order to undermine the success of the whole Title VII, he thought that he can add sex to the list of protected classes such as race, religion, and age, but his plan backfired, and the amendment passed. What makes this story interesting and relevant is the following. Although the protective laws were passed in 1920s and 1964, hardly any woman stepped forward and voiced their complaints due to cultural and societal pressure. They did not have any substantial success through the legal system either. What changed the situation was that a man became the victim of the sexual harassment and filed suit against the woman who imposed it upon him. The subject of the lawsuit became widely known, and he received a favorable judgment in his case. And finally, the women started to have confidence in the practicality of the laws that were passed years before. Setting a legal precedent encouraged women to step forward and speak up about their challenges and their issues. Of course, in many cases, the communities they lived in placed the blame on the women's shoulder and marked them with shame for discrediting their predators. But the taboo was broken, and it became a widespread practice. As a result of more cases surfacing and the success of legal lawsuits in favor of the victims of sexual harassment, the public became less tolerant of harassing words and behaviors, and more receptive and encouraging to the people who spoke up.